Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. We are officially on to the second round of the college football playoff, and these are my official predictions. Here, it's four more games, the exact same setup as the first round, with one game happening. This would be on New Year's Eve. This is a night game, 7:30, and then you've got the three triple header games on New Year's Day. One of them at 1, the next one at 5, and then the final one at 8:45. But beginning with the first game, this is the Fiesta Bowl, so this will be played in Arizona at the Arizona Cardinals home stadium. It is Penn State taking on Boise State. Penn State easily beating SMU. And my initial thoughts of this game, I kind of view it very similar to SMU in the fact that Penn State is the more talented team. They should beat Boise State. We know James Franklin has his struggles with teams that are very elite, that have more talent than Penn State. Boise State is not one of those teams. Now, when it comes to Boise State, I understand people being bullish on them. You look, they have one loss, and the one loss was by 3 points to the only undefeated team in college football on the road. But you look at a game against UNLV, Ashton Jeanty really struggled in that one, averaged about 3 yards a carry. I think something similar is going to happen against this stout Penn State defense. They've got a good run defense. They've always seemed to have a good overall team defense under James Franklin, and I think they've got enough offense to win this game. Now, SMU did kind of hand that game away, the 2 pick sixes early, but they were never going to win anyways. I think Penn State wins this game 24-17. When it comes to the spread, 10.5 is a little bit rich. I do think Boise State with the rest, you can kind of look at it from two different lenses. Is the rest good because you're getting healthy, or are you maybe a little bit rusty? I think it'll be good for them, and they do have the travel advantage with where the game is in Arizona. I'm not sure what the crowd will be. Boise State, obviously, definitely in terms of popularity, less popular than Penn State, but they do have the travel advantage. So I think Boise State will fight in this one, but they're very one-dimensional, and Penn State is a team under James Franklin. They normally beat the teams they're supposed to beat. This is a 6v3 matchup, but we know Penn State sitting minus 10.5. They are the better overall team, given a 65% chance to win. So that's the first game, the night game there. Moving on to the triple header. This is the first game. It is the 1 o'clock one, and this is kind of just like the irrelevant game out of this, these four games. It's the Peach Bowl. It's Texas taking on Arizona State. Texas sitting minus 13.5, given an 80% chance to win. So Texas last week was minus 13. Now they're minus 13.5. It's just it's the way that they do with the auto buys and stuff. It really misaligns the entire bracket. But either way, Arizona State, they had a really nice year. They've got a really good running game. Kenny Dillingham, really phenomenal young head coach. But Texas, you saw what they did to Clemson. Clemson did fight in that game, and they did have over 400 yards of total offense, and they were very banged up, especially at the running back position. But to me, this is another situation where Texas is just going to outclass the other team. I think Texas wins this game fairly easily. This is probably the most irrelevant game of the week, just because I think it's going to be a very sound Texas victory. You look at where the game is located, that would be Atlanta. Texas will probably outnumber Arizona State 70-30, and it's a 1 o'clock game. It's early in the day. It just sets up as kind of like an easy Texas victory. Texas really found their running game against Clemson. They had like 300 rushing yards. Quinn Ewers is always kind of a mixed bag, but he is a veteran. He should be fine against an Arizona State defense. So give me Texas to win this game relatively easily and cover. That's a big spread, 13.5. I mean, they were 13-point favorites against Clemson. They covered it barely, around a similar spread in that one. Moving on to the heavyweight matchup. This is the game that everybody is going to be watching. It is the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Beautiful weather. You've got the sunset. It is Ohio State, the number 8 seed taking on Oregon, the number 1 seed. Ohio State is the favorite in this matchup. So just to put this into perspective, Oregon, the only undefeated regular season team, is underdogs in their first playoff game. That shows you how bad the seeding is done with the auto bids. They should not be facing Ohio State in a rematch. They should be facing Arizona State right now, or, a team of that caliber. But they do have to face Ohio State. The Buckeyes sitting minus 2.5, coming off that crazy victory over Tennessee. They were up 21-0 in the first quarter. Will Howard looked really good. The receivers are great. Trevion Henderson looked good. Maybe most importantly, the offensive line, at least when it comes to pass blocking, was phenomenal against that Tennessee defensive front. They also had some success running the ball, but one of the adjustments I saw Ohio State make against Tennessee was throwing on 3rd and short and 4th and short, well, mainly 3rd and short, But Ohio State, it's very hard for them to get like a 3rd and 2 running the football. And it seems like they're just going to throw it now. So that could come back to bite them against an Oregon team if you can't run it. It seems like their offensive line does not get much push when it comes to running the ball at all, but they are good in terms of pass blocking. This is a tough situation for Oregon. Oregon's got a really sound, good team. We know they beat Ohio State already. It was by 1 point. Oregon fans will tell you, well, they missed their top defensive lineman, and there was also a fumble that wasn't called, but then Oregon also did steal a possession, and then you had the Jeremiah Smith pass interference. It could go either way. They won by 1 point. This is a very tough situation for them. Dylan Gabriel coming into this game. Really good quarterback, Oregon. Really good receivers, Evan Stewart and company. The rushing game for Oregon, I don't think Ohio State is going to be too threatened by. And I do think Ohio State wins this game. It's going to be very, very close. You could argue maybe a little bit lower scoring than this just because both of these defenses are good. The first game, the total was like around 63 total points scored. You could say maybe 27-24, something like that. I do think this does have the potential to kind of be a weird score just because Oregon has a tendency to go for 2 a lot. So maybe it'll be kind of a weird thing where it'll be like 37-32. But I do think Ohio State does pull it out. I don't think they lose to Oregon 2 times. It's really 3 times in a row. Remember back in, 2021, they lost to Oregon at home. This year, they lose to Oregon on the road. They were originally 9-0 against Oregon. Now they're 9-2. If they lose this game, that'll be 3 losses in like the span of 4 years. So I think Ohio State gets it done. They've got a ton of momentum. Ryan Day, he's still on the hot seat. And if he wins this game, that'll go a long way, although technically they're only in the semifinal. But it would be a huge win against Oregon, a team that seems to be beating Ohio State for a lot of these recruits. So this would be a big statement for them. And then moving on to the final game, it is the late game, 8:45. Normally this game doesn't start till like 9 o'clock. It is 7v2. It is Notre Dame coming off a very impressive win over Indiana. They really won that game like 27-3. Indiana scored 2 ridiculous garbage time touchdowns. They'll be taking on Georgia. Georgia, we know the number one thing with them is the quarterback situation. Carson Beck not playing. They will be going with Gunnar Stockton, who's been with the program for multiple years. He is definitely someone that I think can step up for Georgia, and maybe some Georgia fans saying they would prefer this with Beck and how uneasy he's been this year with the turnovers and the interceptions. Notre Dame, you can see a 54% chance to win this game. That's because analytically Notre Dame has performed very well this season, although Notre Dame had a good win against Indiana. The question is, how much do you value Indiana? Because you look at this game, Georgia, even with the quarterback situation, they are loaded. And those players got an extra week of rest against Notre Dame, players who had to play last week. And I just think Georgia is extremely, extremely talented. And you could argue Georgia, this program, they're kind of playing free and easy. I mean, they've got a backup quarterback. Nobody expected them to win the SEC. They had some bad regular season losses, but they're still able to do it. And you're facing a Notre Dame team who really, unless you count Indiana as a great win, they really haven't beaten anyone still. So Notre Dame, this is going to be a major step up for Notre Dame in terms of overall talent. Georgia has the more talented roster. Notre Dame, I'm still very concerned about if Georgia makes them one-dimensional in terms of shutting down the run. Will they be able to throw the ball? To me, Notre Dame does not have the elite receivers. They do not have the weapons to really challenge a Georgia defense vertically, and that could be a major issue when it comes to them winning this game. So in this one, I do think Georgia wins it and covers the 1.5. I have them winning by 3, although it wouldn't shock me if Georgia just straight up shut down Notre Dame to a degree where they only score like 14 points. I'm just concerned about Notre Dame throwing the football. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they will. I know Riley Leonard had like 200 yards against Indiana, but this is a totally different giant, and you would imagine, I mean, Notre Dame fans are going to travel well, but Georgia facing Notre Dame, remember they had that home and home like 5 or 6 years ago. This is a situation being at the Caesars Superdome. We would imagine Georgia, with how close it is, probably the crowd's going to be very close to 50-50, but I think Georgia's going to have the advantage in terms of that. Especially they're going to have the advantage in terms of travel, and they've already got the advantage in terms of rest. So Notre Dame's had a really good year, but I still have questions about them in terms of beating an ultra elite team. In Georgia, you've got big questions about the quarterback situation, but it's not impossible for a backup to come in, especially a backup that's seasoned, that's had experience with this program, to come in and play well and win a playoff game against a good team, considering the talent that he's got around him. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.